the discourses of the Buddha, dealing with emptiness, dealing with not self, dealing with suffering and all that. Instead, people want to study the words of later disciples. So, when the Buddha talks about the words of later disciples, that refers to Mahayana Sutras, because Mahayana Sutras appeared 500 years after the Buddha's passing away. Started by people like Nagarjuna, Asvaghosha, Vasubandhu, and etc. And in the biography of Nagarjuna, what the Chinese call Longsu Pusa, he was asked, how is it that previously there were no such sutras? Now you say that these are the words of the Buddha, discourses of the Buddha. Then he said he went to the dragon palace under the ocean and took out all these sutras. That we cannot accept, because firstly the Buddha says that he does not have the closed fist of a teacher, he does not hide certain teachings. And also the Buddha said very clearly that the true Dhamma is for all to see. Only deviant teachings are secretive. If any teachings are secretive, there must be something wrong with it. That's why they want to be secretive. So the Buddha, that is one thing. The other thing is that during the Buddha's time, there were no books. So how could the Buddha have hidden the books in the dragon palace? There were no books during the Buddha's time. Books only appeared 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, right? Thirdly, if you look at the Mahayana Sutras, at the back of the sutras, they always encourage people to rewrite those sutras and distribute. Now, during the Buddha's time, nobody could have asked anybody to write the sutras and distribute, because there were no books during the Buddha's time. So we know definitely all these writings appeared years later. And another thing you find in Mahayana Sutras, it is characteristic of Mahayana Sutras to always talk about Mahayana and Hinayana, the big vehicle and the small vehicle. And that shows the Sangha had already split. But during the Buddha's time, the Sangha was one Sangha. There was no split Sangha, no Mahayana and Hinayana. So these Mahayana Sutras must have occurred hundreds of years after the Buddha's passing away, then when the Sangha was split into different sects. The other thing is not only later teachings, it's not only Mahayana Sutras, but even in Theravada sect himself, you have commentaries. Those are later teachings. You have Abhidhamma, you have Visuddhimagga, all those are later teachings. Of course, there are certain good things inside there, but unfortunately it is mixed with Dhamma, things that are contradictory to what the Buddha said. So because of that, we have to be very careful.
Because a lot of people are very devoted, they spend a lot of energy, time,
yes.
moving, following all this, and what happened to them? According to this, what is going to they can't even become a Sotapatti,
Yes.
All their effort is...
So in other words, they think they are Buddhists, they are not Buddhists. The Buddha says they are outsiders, they are not Buddhists. Which reminds me that in certain suttas, when the Buddha taught to some external sect ascetics, of course they argue with the Buddha, and after argument and all that, the Buddha showed them the true Dhamma, then they become converted. You know what they say? They say they are so fortunate to hear the Buddha's words, and then they say they thought that they were monks, but they were not monks. They thought they were following the true Dhamma. They were not following the true Dhamma. Unless you have the good karma to come into the true Dhamma, you can be misled for many years. Just like the Citta Samyutta, we read about the external sect ascetic, the naked ascetic by the name of Kassapa. He spent 30 years suffering as a naked ascetic, and he gained nothing. And then when he met Citta, then he was shocked to find Citta is a lay person following the Buddha and has become an anagamin, has attained the 4 jhanas and will be reborn in the 4th jhana heaven. Then he realized he wasted all his time, and then he became a Buddhist monk. So a lot of people, because of not understanding the original teachings of the Buddha, we spend a lot of effort Like I did, I spent 9 years in Mahayana Buddhism. At the end of it, then only I got disappointed. So it's very difficult to change such people's mindset because they have not investigated the original sutta. If they took the trouble to investigate, then only they may realize. It's just like people who follow other religions. They don't understand the Buddha's teachings, so they belittle the Buddha's teachings. But if only they took the effort to understand, then they may appreciate.
One more question.
Yeah.
This one, regarding to the Sutta of the Siva, there are 4 things.
Which one? Which one?
Page 181. The 4 things, noble disciple will possess these 4 things. And I only want to become.
Yeah.
Does that apply afterlife or in this present life?
Once a person possesses, that the sutta says, the noble disciple will possess these 4 qualities. That means once you become a noble disciple, you will attain these things. Even in this lifetime, the only thing it takes time. Takes time.
Just now, somebody mentioned that after all the things that we've done, like going by the following the wrong view. So it's mentioned by the Buddha that wrong view will lead us to the walking place. Like in this case, let's say we have these followers, we donate money to print all the books based on wrong view. So where do they lead us?
Just because like you donate, you have a good intention, but because you are doing something that is not really beneficial, so the merit from there is very, very small. Even though you have a good intention, it's very small. Just like some people, they think that it's meritorious to bow to the Buddha statue. If there's any merit, it's negligible, it's so small. Or it's meritorious to offer rice to the Buddha, or to chant repentance and all this. You have good intention, but the merit is so small. If you support our Dhamma, but your intention is good, there is some merit. However, if you believe in that wrong Dhamma, that is bad karma. Having that wrong view, believe in that wrong teaching, that will bring you to a bad rebirth. We find in the sutta, there's one sutta, I think earlier we read about the Devata Samyutta, one of those suttas, that in the heavens you have disciples of external ascetic teachers in heaven also. Even the teacher is teaching wrong, but because they did good, they support the teacher and all. The only thing is they didn't understand maybe the teacher's wrong view, so they are reborn in the good heaven.
It's about supporting the Sangha. Even though we support the corporate Sangha, it's still we need to support them because then the sasana will continue and Arahant will arise. If we don't support the Sangha, then the sasana will just disappear. So when we support you, the other Buddhist sect and all this, is it something good?
support some other Buddhist sect, it probably is not the Sangha, because if you support them, in future what they teach is not the Buddha's teaching, right? If you support the Sangha that propagates the right Dhamma, that is meritorious, that is very meritorious. But if you support a Sangha that teaches something else, it's not the Buddha's teaching, then that is not supporting the Sangha. Do you know that in the monks' Vinaya, it is mentioned, the Buddha said that his disciples can have communion, that means associate, mix with even external ascetics if they practice the same Dhamma Vinaya. That means if a Hindu Swami, what he practices is the same as what the Buddha teaches, we can consider him to be part of the Sangha. It's not that he wears the same robe, it's what he believes in, what he teaches.
Just a bit more clarification. I mean, the Mahayana monks and all the Tibetan monks are not considered Sangha?
In the Vinaya, if we go according to Vinaya, they are not considered part of our Sangha. Because the Dhamma and the Vinaya they practice is different. The Suttas or the Sutras they follow is different from our Theravada's Suttas. And the Vinaya they keep is also different. Not to mention Mahayana or Tibetan monks. Even Theravada monks, if they follow different Dhamma Vinaya, we also cannot mix with them, we cannot consider them as part of the Sangha. For example, if some monk, even though he wears the Theravada robe, he does not keep the precepts, we don't consider him as part of the Sangha. You know that? That's one thing. Secondly, the Buddha did not, like other religions, consider the Sangha as all the monks. A Sangha is defined as a group of monks who live within a sima, within a boundary. Those who live within a certain boundary are considered one Sangha. Once you step out of the boundary, you are no more part of the Sangha. That's a lot of people don't realize. So like for example, our monastery, the sima, the boundary, is the boundary of our land, 15 acres land. Any monk who's outside our boundary is not considered part of our Sangha. Even though they are Theravada monks, even though they keep the same Dhamma Vinaya, only when they come into our boundary, they are considered one Sangha. A lot of things lay people don't understand. So that is one thing. Another thing is if they follow different Dhamma Vinaya, the Buddha says we must not associate with them. We must not treat them as the same Sangha of monks. So if Mahayana monks, they follow Mahayana Sutras, and they don't keep the Vinaya like we keep, then we don't associate with them. However, a monk like maybe Kong Hai Fa from Taiwan, he teaches, even though he wears the Mahayana robes, but he teaches the Dhamma like our Theravada Dhamma, we can accept him as part of the Sangha, even though he wears different robe. So what is important is whether the Dhamma and the Vinaya he practices is the same as us, according to the Vinaya. Okay, shall we stop here?